All right. Today on the podcast, we have not one, not two, but three guests. They are I don't know if you would call it stars. I'm going to call you guys stars
Yeah,
of a
appreciate it.
new running documentary called Rhythm in the Darkness about three professional musicians who are also ultra runners and their journey through 100-mile race and kind of life in general. So I'm here with Kyle Whalum, Caleb Gilbreth, and Brad Sample. Guys, welcome to the show.
Yo.
Thanks for having us on, dude.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've ever had three people on a show. So this is either going to be cool or total train wreck. So,
Yeah, hopefully a little bit of both.
yeah.
That's our style.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever listened or watched any Believe in Run videos or podcasts, you know that that's basically
Sweet.
our forte.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, this is cool because I'm obviously a big music fan, and we were talking before the podcast, and we actually have some connections in Nashville, mutual connections, which is pretty cool. And so you guys you all met in Nashville, correct? Is that through music? So like which came first, chicken or the egg, the running or the music?
Kyle, do you want to take this one, buddy?
Yeah. So we met. I met Brad first. It was music across the board. I met Brad. I want to say like outside of this little pizza bar that we used to hang and play at. And I met Caleb on the road. But in either case, it was sort of like, especially with me and Brad, I know we were having some beers and stuff, and then kind of got all cocky, like, "Oh, I run, you run, yeah, man," and like, "Well, shit, let's run tomorrow," you know. And then we're like mega hungover, but we actually did it, and that was the beginning of a real long friendship.
Yeah.
And then Caleb, we met on the road, out playing country music, and everybody was talking, "Hey, there's another guy that runs these, what do you call them? Super marathons?" I was like, "Oh, ultras?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're the drummer." And I was like, "Where?" You know, because as far as I knew, this is like, I don't know, 2014. Yeah, and so ultras are still, you know, Instagram is a baby app at this point, and like,
Sure.
It was still sort of the old school ultras, and like I just couldn't imagine anyone in that universe also running these crazy things. And I met Caleb immediately. We're running in no time, like minutes later, like, "Hey, let's go run right now." And so we chatted it up, and again, another lifelong friendship, you know, after that.
Nice. And so you guys were all on tour together at the time when you first met?
Not in the same band or anything. So I was playing with a guy named Brett Eldridge at the time. Kyle was out with Billy Currington. We were at the same festival. And so like our respective crews were like, "There's a crazy guy over in that band. And then there's a crazy guy over you guys should probably meet." And I was training for my first 50K at the time. And Kyle, I think, had done a couple ultras at the time. So he was kind of my first little introduction to the idea that, and I was doing a road 50K, which is the weird thing. And Kyle was like, "That's dumb, man. Like, keep training and do it was dumb."
You and I have both done that since that time.
I know.
We signed up for it a couple years ago, actually.
Too many miles on roads.
It's real silly.
I feel like with 50, anything over a marathon, it's like, that's why I like running them, is because they're not a marathon. Yeah. It's like you can kind of rest and or eat a full buffet of food during the race, and it's totally accepable.
That's right. Totally. The culture, you know, it's like the ultra running culture is what I dug. It was like, I don't know, it was almost like you know, hippies with hacky sacks and lots of like alcohol, and you know, like everybody's just way calmer. And I was like, the road ultra sounds miserable, because then you're still going to be looking at your Garmin, worried about splits. But you know, the two, I like to keep them separate. Marathon is for that, for me. You know, like I got to hit 7:30 pace. You know, ultra is way less, unless you're trying to go for a PR, which we've all played around with, you know.
Yeah.
But to continue us all meeting, I remember finally met Brad maybe a few months after I met Kyle. They were on a training run at Percy Warner Park in Nashville, and I was out there by myself. We were running towards each other, and as soon as I saw people, I turned around and started running with them for a little while. I was like, "Oh yeah, man, people!" And so Brad and I became fast friends. Within like a year and a half, I was like a groomsman at his wedding. That's how much like time we spent together in a short period of time. So we initially
That's
met through
awesome.
running, and then ultimately ended up forming this band, kind of thing.
Nice. And then were you guys always runners, or was that something that you came to later in life?
So I talk about I jumped in first.
Yeah. That's cool.
I talk about it a little bit in the doc, but I really didn't have a relationship with running until like the end of college. I was a pretty severe asthmatic as a kid. Like I had to bail on soccer and any sort of aerobic sports when I was like 13. And that actually got me into drums, which was a great little, scene change in my life. I figured that out and ended up working out. And then right at the end of college, had a friend that was training for a half marathon, and I'd just tried running 3 miles with her and it was fine. And, kind of very gradually got into that. And so then when I met Kyle, that was like 3 years into that very slow snowball of like, oh, I can do a half. Oh, I can do a marathon. Yeah. Okay. And so it didn't start. I was certainly not always a runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same for me. My dad was super athletic. He's a firefighter. When I was in my teens, wanted to get in shape and just literally started running around my block. I talk about this a little bit in the doc as well. And and basically never really took it too seriously, but I got pretty fast, pretty quick, and enjoyed it, and started signing up for like some 5Ks and stuff like that in my late teens, and won a couple of 10Ks, and then did a few half marathons and marathons. And then when Kyle and I kind of got into our ill-fated jaunt as hungover music runners together, we would go and do this thing called I guess it's just called the loop at Percy, that same park, Percy Warner, but it's just a concrete loop. And we would train there with big hills. And Kyle started talking about these crazy guys out west, like that are running, 100-mile things through the woods. And I was like, that sounds psycho. And I never want to do that. And I think within 6 months, both of us were signed up for a 50K out here called Stump Jump in Chattanooga.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It's Kyle's fault.
Is Percy Warner Park the one that's like, if you go over the bridge, kind of by downtown, and then you go, there's like a park over that way? Is that Percy
Shelby
Warner?
Park over?
Oh, that sounds like Shelby Bottoms.
Shelby. Yeah.
Which is like mellow. That's a very flat terrain for the most part.
I've run at Shelby Bottoms before.
Yeah.
Percy's like the sawtooth evil version of that. It's just there's no flat. It's just up and down.
Okay. Is that a paved loop, or is that a
They have
trail?
both. There's a big 11.2 mile like paved loop you can do, very hilly still. And then there's a system of like 3 loops that add up to about 11.5 miles of trail there as well. So
does Percy Priest have a trail system?
It's got the Bell Road.
Well, it connects to the Percy Priest Dam is the starting point of the big greenway, which actually so the 50K that I did, my first 50K, incorporated that greenway because it does go all the way to Shelby Bottoms.
Gotcha.
It's something like
it goes to downtown.
Miles. Yeah, it loops into downtown and all that. It goes forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. All right. So and then Kyle, you kind of started running. When did you start running? I always forget this because I know you were like doing music, and then you were like working in run retail, and then back to music and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, running has been like a lifelong kind of flirtation. My dad introduced me when I was young. It was sort of like old school, like, you're gaining weight, go run. And, now you're not supposed to talk about weight and running in the same sentence, but that's what it was in the 90s, And
for sure.
So he kicked me out the door at 6 a.m. and he went with me, to be fair. And kind of got into a groove with that. Like I stopped hating it, even though the first time was awful and traumatic. Within a couple of weeks, I was doing it on my own and really proud of it. And then it tapered off, and I got into, I don't know, girls or bass guitar or whatever. And in college, it was like, freshman 15, I hate to keep bringing weight back up, but it just became like, oh, I could do that. I could run, maybe I should get some exercise. And I would have these fits and starts. And it wasn't until I broke my ankle at like a party.
Okay, so first I saw this in the documentary, so I need to hear the actual story about how you broke it, because I'm sure it's a good one.
Yeah, so it was like a silly like party stunt. I was supposed to was going to jump. There was a high porch. It was like maybe 7 feet tall. And I used to like jump off the porch and run around through the house and come back onto the porch from the inside and be like, hey guys, you know, and like when you're 6 IPAs deep, this is all like normal stuff. You know, I was like 24 years old. Yeah, we've all,
everybody.
And, so, you know, I did this stunt and it went horribly wrong. And, I was in denial for a second. I felt that crunch. Something felt really bad. Like I obviously rolled it, and I grew up skateboarding. I was used to rolling my ankles, so I didn't think anything of it. So I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette and having probably another drink. And like, I look down and my feet are at right angles from each other. And my friend's like, hey man, do you think your knee is pointing straight right now? And I was like, I think it's time to go to the hospital. So so we go to the hospital, and, it begins this long process where I was, you know, incapacitated for like a full year. It was a cast, then a boot, then a wheelchair, or maybe I have that out of order. But, you know, up until that point, I had left running on the shelf in college, and I was just really into rock and roll. Like the whole lifestyle, you know, it was leather all the time. It was a pack of American Spirits in your shirt pocket, you know, like I was that dude. I didn't care about exercise. I didn't care about nature, any of that stuff. And this whole, over the course of this year of losing my mobility, just gave me a preview or a sampling of what some people go through when they don't have mobility anymore, you know? And I got kind of convicted about like, well, here I am, like a healthy 24-year-old chain smoking and just drinking alcohol like it's H2O. And
literally today on our podcast, right before this, I was like, there were whole years in my 20s like when I was in the band that I definitely drank more Keystone Light than I did water.
Than actual 100%. Water? Oh, yeah, of course.
Actual water.
Easy.
And
no question.
Right. And on top of that, exactly, smoking cigs and just, I think the only outdoor activities I did were again playing disc golf and when I was in Nashville by the airport, that disc golf course.
Yeah, but you were high for that, see? So it doesn't. You gotta have a joint for that one.
Right. So like, so basically, it was like that was the extent of my athletic activity.
Yep.
So,
and you know, all of us have these moments in our life where this gets into some of the stuff that I think the film touches on beautifully. Is like, as you transition from a boy to a man, you know, or a girl to a woman, and you have these moments where you're like, I want better for myself. Like there's more to life than just kind of the surface level stuff that you're supposed to want, you know, like, and in that way, running is kind of spiritual. And so for me, that was my first little taste of like, I want to be better than this, dude. Like I have a healthy body. Why am I not doing anything to honor it? You know? And so I was determined that year, when I get out of this wheelchair, I'm going to run every day. Like, and for the most part, that has been true for the last, 18 years. I'm not good at math, but, 16 years, I think I've been running consistently. And so, it was a beautiful kind of haphazard journey to get there, but, here we are.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you guys have the same experiences? I mean, I know, like, was there a moment where you were like, oh, this is my thing, like running?
Man, for me, it was just like I said, my only real job has ever been music. My dad, he's a musician. He's a great musician, but he's a firefighter. All my cousins are in like public service in some way, and they're all, you know, these like big yoked up burly dudes. And so like I played a little bit of sports and stuff like that. But there was never any like physical challenge I could be to any of them or anything like that. Not that they were like fighting me all the time or anything like that. All my cousins and my dad are great. But all of a sudden I realized in my late teens, early 20s that like it kind of didn't matter how far. At that point I didn't really know about ultras, but like anybody that I knew could name a distance, and I could just be like, oh yeah, man, cool. I'll go run with you. And that was like rad to me, you know, like, you know, I could, like, any of my friends, any old dude that was in like a running club that was getting up at 3:45 a.m. to go and burn out 20 miles or whatever. Like it kind of didn't matter. I could just kind of always do it. And it,
dude, I always think about that. Not to interrupt you.
No, yeah, please.
In the same vein, and this is a weird thing to think about, but I always think, man, if there was a some crazy apocalyptic type situation where I had to get out of the city, I could actually just run to wherever I need.
I think about that a lot.
Like,
yeah. I think that's common, you know. Yeah.
I mean, I'd abandon my family, but I was.
Oh, I mean, you know, my wife. I will say for me, I adopted running as like my thing, like immediately, like to an annoying degree where I look back at 21-year-old Caleb's tweets and I'm like, oh my God, shut up. You ran not that big of a deal. But like, I was so excited about the fact that like coming from being a severe asthmatic where like running a mile was impossible to being able to run like 8, 10, these numbers that would have seemed like a joke to me previously. So enamored with that.
I think when you get up into double digits, there's something you're like, you walk around like a demigod. Like, can you run 11 miles? Because I can't, you know.
You definitely have to talk about it. For sure.
I remember I had private lessons in college. I had private lessons with my drum instructor on Mondays, and I would always do my long runs on Sundays. And eventually we got into the rhythm where every single time I walked into my lesson, he would go, how far did you run yesterday? Because I started all my lessons with, Dave, I ran 16. I was so excited and had to, it was my thing immediately.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned it in the documentary about having the severe asthma. I think you had to quit playing soccer because of that.
Yeah.
So how did you manage that with running?
So there's kind of two sides to it. For one side of it, it has gotten a lot better where I'm not in and out of the hospital like I was as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was pretty, a couple of hospital trips a year was pretty normal for me as a kid. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But as I got older, things did level off a little bit, but it is still like a thing that I deal with.
You dealt with it at a race recently, right?
Last year I ran the Tunnel Hill 50 and was like in the middle of one of my worst asthma attacks ever. And it's just one of the, now I've kind of gotten to a relationship with it where I know what I'm capable of, even if I'm having trouble. Like usually asthma isn't to the degree that like my lungs clamp down and I collapse. It's okay, I have a limited capacity as to how fast I can move. If I'm going to do this while I'm having trouble, I got to walk as much as I need to. I got to take my ego out of it. So I just have a relationship with it where, if I got to take days off, I take days off. If I got to go really low to the point that it's embarrassing to me, I do that too. And, so I kind of roll with it these days.
That's good training for being a dad someday, honestly. I mean, that's kind of what it's like to have a family. It's like, you have to, I'm going to have to cobble together 6 miles for this whole week because we're on vacation or whatever, not to make light of your actual, medical condition, but I'm just saying like, I think that's a healthy component of like, I see these run streakers, and I'm stoked on it. Like, I think it's cool, but part of me is also like, I don't know, is that balanced? Like, is that real life where you get off an international flight and go immediately run,
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting. And I was going to ask you guys about that because I'm in the same position. I find it, with Believe in the Run, we do a lot of travel, a lot of activities and events and stuff like that. And then in the midst of it, you're trying to train for a marathon. And it's something I think about a lot is this balance, especially with family, because it's the most important thing to me. And I also see a lot of people who seem like they can't, like they have to run the 80-mile weeks or something like that. I almost feel like chained to it in a way. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like sometimes even for myself, you got to step back and say like for instance, during my marathon training this summer, we had a family vacation where we went camping one weekend for like 4 days. Of course, I had like a 18-mile long run or something, and I was like, "Dude, I'm just not doing it. Like, I'm actually not even. I'm not even gonna run this whole time. Like,
in fact, I'm not running this marathon anymore.
I quit running altogether.
Yeah, I'm done running.
But and I'm happy. No, so but I was. You know what? I just didn't run for 4 days, and I didn't let it stress me out because usually I'd be like, oh, I got to figure out where I'm going to fit this run in. Like maybe I'll wake up earlier, maybe like they'll be at the pool and like this type of situation. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. And it was awesome and didn't matter. Like you can miss a long run or even 3 days. and it was fine.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I want to ask you guys about that because it's definitely something that I noticed in the documentary. Like that's something that came up a couple of times, whether I was intentional or not, was this idea of you're all touring musicians, which is a lot of time away from home, of course. And then you had to come home, and how do you juggle or even justify running?
Man, we'll let you know when we figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little system that really works for me. I mean, by the way, I was joking about run streaking. I did that during the pandemic for, I think, 8 months, and it did get. I was like, well, maybe I'll drink the Kool-Aid. Maybe this is cool. And then it wasn't that cool as a family dude, you know. I remember the day after one of my 100-mile races, I was like, I'm done with this life. I'm not doing this anymore. But I think, you know, for me, a simple system is I try to run every single day that life allows me to. And I save my rest days for the days where life is steaming to tell me it's not a good run day. Like international travel, I like to, now that I'm older, I like to sit and enjoy sitting still on that plane, man, play video games, you know, be like a little break from the kids, all that kind of stuff. So when I was younger, I used to stack workouts that I could feel okay about sitting still for so long. I'll still do that occasionally, but, you know, or like family vacation. We just got back from Legoland this weekend, and that was like a 3-day trip. And I brought running shoes, but I looked at them as I was putting them in my bag. I was like, I'm probably not going to see you guys until I get home, you know? And much like you, I just went with the flow, and I didn't, you know, gain a bazillion pounds. I didn't lose any fitness. You know, life, I think as we get older, life is trying to tell us something about flow. And I think when you go along with that flow, I felt like a better dad. I felt like a better husband. I got back, and, you know, I think it was the way to do it for me.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Man, I'm actually kind of in a period right now where I'm running like 12 miles a week for the first time in my adult life, and I'm loving it, honestly. Last summer out in LA, doing the voice stuff, and like that was away from the family for so long, and
so were you the drum, or were you like the house drummer for the voice?
No, so I play guitar.
Brad's
right?
the guitar.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. You guys
Yeah,
switched around. Sorry, my bad.
He does play drums. He's pretty good too, but
That's great.
No, but no, I was a contestant, so I'll be on an episode.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll be on an
cool.
episode this next week. Well, depending on when this thing comes out, I'm not sure who's.
Oh man.
So yeah, I was like filming as a contestant, right? And
No way. That's awesome.
thanks. Yeah, it was crazy, but it took up a ton of time. In the process, I was training for Kyle and Caleb are gonna laugh the second that I say the name of this race, but I was training for a race called Pine to Palm. That is like has never endingly bested me. It beat me in 2017 or 16.
I think that was in the documentary.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's in the documentary.
Yeah.
Well, the part that's not in the doc is that I've been trying to get back to this damn thing for almost a decade now, and like every year, it falls apart in some capacity. This year is no different. I was signed up for it and everything, and so I spent all summer training there in the Verdugos. Kyle and I ran a couple races together, or not races, runs together while I was out there. When I finally got back home, basically timing worked out such that I wasn't able to do it again with the filming. And when I got back home, I was like, I was like, oh man, I'll find a hundo before the end of the year, blah, 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 blah. The last time I did that, I ended up running a treadmill 100-miler, which was a nightmare. And so,
dude, what?
Yeah, it was so stupid. So, Caleb actually ran.
Have you heard of that, Robbie?
Kyle too.
I've heard of it, but I didn't think like
any sane person that you knew.
It's called the Dreadmill 100, and I don't know if you want to get into that now or not. It's gnarly,
Actually,
dude.
you know what? I don't know if I've heard of the Dreadmill 100. I've heard of like obviously during COVID when people were doing that kind of stuff, but like
he did it before COVID.
What a sicko.
It was very stupid. So anyway, all that said, I'll leave that alone. Speaking of, Caleb and Kyle both were like saviors in that race. Because they both ran considerable distances on a treadmill next to me.
That's right.
Which was a ton of fun. The only fun part of that race. But all that said, I was very quickly going down that rabbit hole, and also had just like lost a little bit of like the vanity fitness part of fitness that I liked, you know, like looking a certain way and stuff like that, which I'm man enough to admit that I really enjoy that part of running. You know, it makes you look kind of cool for the most part.
I got you.
But you know, it's not all of it, but I've always enjoyed that part. And when I got back home, I was still training like crazy. You know, I hadn't been around my wife and daughter all summer. I was having to take gigs again and go on the road and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, man, there was always a little bit of a balance and I was pretty good at it. It felt like, but at this point, it was like, I'm going to figure something else out for a minute and just like enjoy running. Every time I feel like it, I'm going to go 4 or 5 miles. I'm going to put the kid in the bob and go on a stroller run and just enjoy normal human running and then find other ways to get my fitness fix. And I've loved it, actually.
That normal human running. Yeah,
you know what I mean, though? Like
I know exactly what you mean.
Like,
yeah.
When you tell people you're bagging 65, 70 miles a week, they're like, you're a psycho. And it is psycho.
Right.
You know, I love it.
It's not normal.
No, I do. I really love it. But all that said, I'm excited next year to start training for something crazy again. But right now it's I'm enjoying the chill time of not like feeling the pressure to have to bag big miles every week.
Yeah.
Man, for me, it's like
go ahead.
For me, I have one less variable in my life than Brad and Kyle in that I don't have kids. Like I'm married,
right?
So I'm accountable to my wonderful wife and like the time that we allot for each other. But I have one less variable, so that makes it a little bit easier to carve out some time. Also, sometimes touring can actually be conducive to having a better training schedule. Because
for sure.
The other day, like a couple weeks ago, I'm training for the Tunnel Hill 100 coming up, and a couple weeks ago, I had 2 shows in a row at the same venue in Florida. We were doing 2 nights there. So on day 2, like I just made sure to button it up on night 1, didn't drink too much, and then on day 2, got up and ran 25 miles before. I didn't even have to sound check that day. So there's times like that where like, you might, if you're on a tour bus, you roll into the venue at 9 a.m. sound check's not till 2, as long as you're taking care of yourself and not hungover, then, it makes sense to be able to go run for a couple of hours. So
it was actually
hungover when we're younger, was sometimes a challenge, but
for sure.
I think we all find it easier as we get older. And like Kyle said, take care of ourselves.
Totally. In the same way, we were in Paris for the Olympics.
Oh, cool, dude!
Yes, man.
And so it was pretty rad. I'm not gonna lie. But I was like, my coach, I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to run this week. Like, hardly. I'll fit in what I can. But it turns out that I put up like one of my biggest mileage weeks ever because, we're there and we had a couple out. We had a few shakeout runs that we did with some groups and. You'd run to the run. It was like 2 or 3 miles to the run. Then you do the run. And before you know, you have 10 miles. And then it's like, oh, I had, 2 hours of free time. Well, I'm just going to run around Paris, kind of get lost.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
As you know, it's the best way to see the city.
Absolutely. I was going to say that travel stoke, I mean, that goes a long way. That can be better than like caffeine, for getting out the door.
For
It's
sure.
like you're in a new place. I was just in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, and it was my first time in that country. So actually my first time in South America. And so, I had that feeling again of like, I got kind of low key, even though I'm jet lagged, like can't wait to lace up just so I can see what's around me, and see the people. I have a habit of like, the hotel will always advise you, oh, sir, please don't go this way.
Yeah.
And that's the first way I go because I'm like, man, I'm a human being. I want to go see this place. You know what I mean?
I'm always like, dude, I live in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I think... Like,
you ever heard of East LA?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you, dude. Yeah. The travel stoke is real.
Yeah, I think, and as you know, and I think I asked you this, Kyle, before when you were on a couple years ago, but I do want to ask you guys, because you tour a lot and you are running in different places, what's one of your favorite places that you run, or just like an awesome run that you had in another city or new place?
Kyle and I actually have a couple that we shared together. So there have been 2 different times that Kyle and I have been on kind of the same road gig. He and I both did a few months together with country artist Brett Eldridge. We got in a fantastic, it was 18 to 20 miles, like around near Lake Tahoe. Just
being
the nearest peak, and like went up it as long as we could until we were looking at our watches and thinking we got to get back for sound check, turning around, back down. That was, man,
drinking water out of streams, like mountain water, rad.
Let's do that. So that was wild. We did another one with Zach Brown in Vegas, and we rented a car. We planned a little better on that one. Rented a car out Charleston, got in, I think, around 20 miles that day. Same deal. Nice. Those are two of my favorite just memories in my life, period. But definitely tour memories, like favorite run memories, like all rolled into.
Yeah.
Caleb, do you remember that we made sound check by seconds on that Mount Charleston run? We were on top of the mountain doing math like, bruh, if we throttle it, we might be able to get back within, we might have time for a shower. I don't know. And
hour before
we blew all of our extra time at In-N-Out on the way back, grabbing food, of course,
Right.
And, I remember getting down to sound check, say sound check was at 3 p.m. We were walking into the venue at 3 p.m. like no time to spare.
Yeah.
that was a fun memory.
Man.
It was this. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. The one of my favorite memories ever was back in the day when I was like first starting to get on bus gigs. I was playing for this guy named Michael Ray, and he was in the process of transitioning from a van to a bus, and we were chasing around this headliner named Chase Rice, who's a country guy, and Michael's a pretty brotastic country dude too. He's a good guy and decent singer. But we were, like following this bus and bus routing in a van. Like when he headed back to Nashville, we were all going to get on a bus. I think this was 2014 or 15 or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but we had planned this day off in Salt Lake City for weeks, and I was going to go on a long run and hit some of the tall mountains around the city and stuff like that. And long and short of it, because we were in a van, nobody could really sleep, and we got messed up with snow. And so we ended up not getting to we were supposed to get to Salt Lake City at like 8 a.m. and I was just going to go run all day. And ended up not getting there until like, I think 11 p.m. or something like that this one day. And I was like, I still want to go on this run. And I don't even remember the name of the mountain, but I remember looking on Google Maps and going and talking to the road manager. I was like, hey, I'm going to start running at 2 a.m. and I'm going to run up this way and over this peak. And then on the next, I think it was called Springdale or something like that. It's like 20 something miles away from down. It's the direction they were going, but I was going to meet them at a Starbucks. And we're all like, you're out of your mind. You're not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. Even the like concierge and the doorman had a bet that I wasn't going to come back down to the lobby at 2 a.m. And I gave my roommate at the time, my hotel roommate, the bass player, John Sepulveda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think I gave him a cold 20 to like pack my bags back up the next morning when everybody left, and took off at 2 a.m. and ran through the city, up to where the governor's house is, past the tabernacle, all that kind of stuff, way up that hill.
Yeah. Had
a headlamp on, saw the sunrise over, I'm not even sure what mountain peak that was way far away.
Dude, that's right.
Ran down the back side of the hill right as my phone was dying, and I was like, oh shit, this is awful. Like, if anything goes wrong, I am screwed. But by the grace of God, made it over the hill and met up with everybody and the bus and the van, and they were all like, you're a freaking nut job. But it was just one of the coolest runs ever, because it was like kind of wild and a little psycho and a little dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Just a ton of fun. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, those are the best. Those weird runs where you're like, I might die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My phone has 10% battery life. I feel like that's.
Oh yeah.
Brad, I feel like when I was watching the documentary, I was like, I relate to this dude.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Choose your fighter.
There's definitely a possibility where the undiagnosed ADHD may be a thing. Whenever I see those lists, I'm like, yeah, everything on that. But I'm like, yeah, my phone's always at 10%. I'm like, my headlamp's probably not charged. I probably forgot my bib.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my whole life, man.
I think it's funny the layout of the I don't want to say characters, of just the three of us. It's really funny because there's just three distinct type of runners, in this group. And like Caleb is very different from Brad, who's very different from me. And, it's just fun to like see which one you kind of identify with,
I did notice that in the documentary, which I thought was really cool because I was like, this is pretty rad because they're all really good friends. You can tell that they come from different places in life and just like personalities, because Caleb's more of the, I don't know, type A, but just like very regimented, like has a shit together.
Caleb's actually functioning, and then
yeah, he seems like a real adult. And then, but it's cool because you guys all share the same passions in the running. It was cool seeing you share the 100 miler. You did the Pinhoti 100.
Yeah.
Which I always forget which state that's in.
Alabama.
I know it's in the South. But
yeah.
That's right. Okay, yeah. I should know this because one of our reviewers is from Alabama.
It's a sleeper of a.
that's it.
It's
awesome, man.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. And it's a point-to-point race, which
Yeah.
is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rare for trail races.
Yeah.
100 milers. And so it was cool seeing you guys do that starting out as a team, helping each other, and then, as the race goes along, you kind of find your own rhythm, which is, it's called I should point out that I don't even know if I've said it. The documentary is called Rhythm in the Darkness. And you also did the whole soundtrack for it, which I didn't even mention yet. And I'm sorry it took me 35 minutes.
That's all good.
But you did your own little like super group for the documentary, and you're called DFL, which if anybody's in ultra running, you know what that means. And you, did all the music for it, and then which is in the movie and shows you guys playing together, and then shows you running the race together. And I thought that was pretty awesome, and it seemed like a really cool experience.
It was.
Yeah, it was super fun and super wild, and kind of a miracle that it worked out. The three of us could even book that weekend.
Yeah,
right.
That's almost the craziest thing about it. It's just the scheduling worked out, 'cause all three of us have very different schedules, and now Kyle lives in LA, and like who knows when we'd ever be able to get on 100 miler or longer together. So that was just a miracle in and of itself that we got to make this record together and then got to all do the same damn 100-mile race together. That was very special.
And we all finished.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Right.
I mean,
I had my doubts.
Caleb's, what's that, Rob?
Spoiler.
I had my doubts at like an hour into the, like 60 miles into the race on the documentary. I was like, dude, is this going to work out?
Right.
My thoughts too.
Yeah. You know who's really thinking that was No, I mean, I remember being worried, even at the finish line, like me and Brad are all jubilant, but I'm like low key, if Caleb like doesn't finish, our plans to like party at the cabin and stuff are shattered. He's going to be pissed, like
Right.
The vibe is going to be really, really, not good. So when he rolled through, I was like, oh, thank God. Now we can all celebrate. We can all, have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was because that was your first 100 miler, right?
My first 100. Yeah. I'd only done a handful of 50s up till that point.
Yeah.
I think Pilot, you and I had done 2 or 3 at that point. I can't remember. We had done.
Yeah.
Y'all both had done Arkansas, and you'd both done Pine to Palm.
I think that was my 4th, and it was Brad's 3rd, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I've never done a 100 miler. I've only done 150 and then a bunch of 50Ks. But what do you feel like is the hardest part of a 100 miler? Like the hardest, obviously, is probably the mental part. But at what point is it the hardest for you?
For me, it's always, it doesn't really matter the distance. It's always right about 2/3 of the way through is always the toughest mentally for me. So for 100, you think about all the factors that's happening for like an average paced guy like one of us. Like by 2/3 of the way through, it's dark. Runners are really starting to spread out, especially in a point to point like Pinhoti. So you're really alone. It's really dark. You have a hilarious amount of miles left to go. So if you're at Pinhoti, my Achilles was starting to give me trouble around mile 60. I've still got 40 miles to go on what feels like a busted foot. So that to me, whether it's going well or not, that's always that point of like, oh, I still have 40 miles. That's a hilarious there. And that's always the toughest. So the sunrise is usually what gets you out of that. But yeah, that's always the low point for me. It doesn't matter how well it's going.
Yeah.
I haven't yet mastered the when something like really catastrophic is going bad. like the physical and mental turnaround part. Like I've toughed my way through a couple races, but like if something like Caleb and I did a hundo a year and a half ago now, Coldwater, which Kyle's done as well and crushed. We did not crush it. It crushed us. And
race one.
Yeah, I felt great. And then the last 20 miles, it started dumping rain and it was like 40 degrees and, it was a ton of sand. So it was like running through, cake batter basically. Yeah, it was awful. And it just sucked. And like, I was trying my best to like keep pace and stuff, but I was so tired and I was so depleted and I'd worked so hard to get to that point of the race doing well that like, for me, I think the thing that often beats me is that like, it's the thing that beats me, and then the thing that's the coolest to get out of, even if it's just a matter of crossing the finish line, however pathetically, is that like mental spiral of God, this sucks so bad. How did I get myself here? And until you either call it and give up or cross the finish line, there's like no respite from it. So that's the part that like I've had a couple 100-milers that have been like kind of beautiful all the way through and a lot of fun, and that's rad. Mm-hmm. But the ones where it doesn't go that way, I still haven't totally mastered the like, okay, I'm going to dig my way out of this and have a great time.
I think something that gets lost in the Instagram generation of ultra runners is like, sometimes we lose sight of this is supposed to really test you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this is not supposed to be a cute, like, profile pic that you pin at the top of your page.
Well,
like,
right.
So some race, there's the wisdom, well, keep running, it'll get better. I mean, low key, sometimes it does not get better.
Right.
And it's like, that's the real test. I was pacing Caleb at that race they were talking about. And, we ran the last 40 miles together. And when I tell you, it kept getting worse and worse. And like, at one point it's like, bro, like, what are we made out of here?
Yeah.
And I got to see Caleb dig so deep. I was in tears as a pacer. I was kind of rabbiting him. I was up ahead of him, so he couldn't see it, but I was crying as we were kind of coming in for the finish. Cause I'm like, I know firsthand account what he went through out there. It was dark, David Goggins shit that like, people, it's worth saying this experience can be euphoric, but a lot like life, it can also just be devastating and very depressing, but I think we can all agree when you're done with these things, then you have the 10,000 foot view and you come out a better person of the experience,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, and like I said, it was only it was a 50 mile
50 miles
race.
A long run.
Yeah, it's still a long time out there. And it was a weird race because it started at night. So it started at 7 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And, and so basically just run through the night. And it was, I remember I was at mile, 40 or something. It was like the sun was coming up. And, this is in national forest in Dumfries, Virginia. Like it's like close to 95.
Sick.
Like at certain points you can hear 95.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, and you're just like there by yourself and the sun's coming up. I'm like, I literally had this thought. I'm like, what am I doing? Like why is it 5:30 a.m. and I'm just in the middle of this forest, like with a walking stick that I just found, like doing
a plastic bag as a poncho, you just shovel.
Like trying to run 50 miles. Like what's the point? What is happening right now?
And
existential crises are pretty regular for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm doing this.
But that's the good shit, man.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. And then of course you finish it and you're like, okay, that's why.
Right.
Right.
And that really is, I think that really is part of it. It's like you can try and bed that stuff down and say those kinds of like accomplishment tactics don't matter or whatever, but there really is this like, and I've DNF'd a few races as well, and there's a whole other element of learning that kind of stuff too. But there's also really awesome door that's opened every time you like push past something you think was impossible. And I think that's that, like everybody talks about the why and the reason and stuff like that. And for me, that's kind of always it. It's like I didn't think this was even a thing that was remotely possible for so much of my life. When Kyle first started talking about it, I was like, that's crazy. Like even the picture on, what was it? not Unbreakable, Kyle, that DVD,
Mm-hmm.
like the picture of Anton Kropitschko, he just looks like this skinny, wiry, homeless guy, like trouncing through the mountains, and you're like, this dude, psycho, you know, like that's why he can do it, is because he's crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. When the focus is on the elites, you know, which is one of the things I love about our film, is that very rarely do you see something that has nothing to do with Killian Jornet or Courtney Dauwalter. You know, I like love these people, obsessed, you know. I'll throw Kipchoge in there, you know. But hearing the story from people that are genuinely worried they may not be able to do this, you know, like to me, that's kind of where the sauce is, because it's easy to look at the elite athletes and be like, well, they're gifted, clearly, you know.
Yeah.
And the truth is, they're going through the same stuff we are. I mean, they're out there working a lot harder than we are. But yeah, I mean, each one of us can find that little nugget of like hope in seeing other normal people do these incredible things. Like, an ultra is such a surreal place. You're watching people of all body sizes, all races, shapes, whatever. Some people are like actively disabled out there, you know, and like doing this incredible thing. What other like event can you go to where all the participants, for the most part, achieve something almost like immortal, you know?
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. Yeah. It's because it is an unbelievable task. Like, if any normal person, because I remember when I think when I was in the band, we would read a lot of books on tour. So we'd just like go to the library before a tour, just check out like seven books, and we'd all like pass them around the van or whatever. And I remember I like sports, so I would get like the best American sports writing collections, volumes and stuff, and then it'd have, you know, short stories or whatever. And I remember this is, you know, when I didn't run at all. I hated running more than anything in life. And I read, there was a story about Dean Karnazes running the Badwater.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an incredible story. And for someone who had never heard, again, of ultra running, it just, like, I could not conceive of this feat. Like, it just seems so mind-blowing. But the fact that there are normal humans who have normal jobs. I mean, I think about Mike Wardian a lot, because he's like a dude who
Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, who has his own job, who it's his
and
own
kids.
business and stuff.
Yeah.
And
like
kids.
lots of them.
But he does like he just finished the AT, whole, you know, the length of the AT, and while it wasn't the fastest time, it was still like ridiculous. He was averaging whatever point 25 or 30 something miles per day. And and it was just, it's just like while he is an athlete, like he's still a normal dude. He just like puts in the work and gets it done. It's always incredible to me that and he's one of many examples of that, like you said.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I love the ultra community. You know, I mean, I don't know. We started as marathoners. I think a marathon is one of the hardest things you can do. I still am afraid of marathons, like after running all these long 100-milers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like a road marathon scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But there is something special about ultra running. It's just hard to put into words. Like it's got something special when you run through the night. I mean, I like to say it's my spirit quest, you know, every year is, to go do something literally epic, you know, running for 24 hours, watching the sun go down and come back up, you know, running into the arms of your family. Like that kind of stuff is so beautiful to me. Yeah. I love it.
I love that. So do you guys have any other plans coming up for another tandem event or your own like goals? I know you said Tunnel Hill 100, which do you just like running flat? Ultras? Okay.
Man,
run flat, stay low.
Yeah, no, it's super dumb. Like I just got a wild hair, and like last year I ran Coldwater in January, and then kind of around the fall I started getting kind of itchy to like run something, but like, and Tunnel Hill's like a 3-hour drive, and so I went and did the 50. I trained, but like fairly minimally, and then just being on that course, I've never done anything like that where it's so gentle, and it's so well like run, like it's well organized. I just kind of, after running the 50, I was like, I kind of want to see how fast I'm capable of running 100, and that's the course that you go to see how fast you're capable of doing anything.
That's true.
So I just kind of got that wild hair after that. And so I've kind of been thinking about it since then. Like I haven't run a race since then. I like started building my base like in like February of like, all right, let's, get back to a normal regimen. And that's all I've really cared about as far as like fitness for the last like 6 months of like, I want to see how well I can do this. For me. I, as an asthmatic and as a regular guy, like my goals are going to be a little less impressive than some folks, but I'm aiming for sub 24. We'll see. 22 hours might be an ambitious, realistic goal for me. That's what I have in my head.
That's
so
awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm kind of chilling right now. I think the with a wife and kid, you kind of get one a year, or at least that's what I've discovered so far.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna bank this year's. Well, no, I don't have anything to call out on this year just because I was gone so much.
So you get to do 2 next year.
Yeah. So no. I think next year is kind of the hell or high water. I'm going back to Pine to Palm to get it right.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, that's right. That's the goal.
Where's Pine to Palm again?
It's in the system.
Oregon.
And so Southern Oregon.
Okay, gotcha. All right, cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of terrible, right, Kyle? Like it's pretty.
It's burly. It's a UTMB qualifier, and it's 22,000 feet of gain kind of thing.
Okay.
So a big mountain race.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty rough. So I've actually run every step of the course, but when Kyle and I ran it together in 2016, I got pulled off at 54, I think.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I'd just like to go back there and get it right.
Man.
That's kind of the goal right now.
You got your redemption out of it for sure.
Yeah, dude. That's right. Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah. I love that thread. And then I have we just had another child, so I'm now a dad to 3 kids.
Yeah.
And as you can expect, that's altered my training and running goals substantially. So like I ran my last 100 was in 2022, and it was from Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon. Pretty epic race, pretty terrible race, like my slowest time, and I basically left my soul out there. And during the middle of that race, I basically called my wife, like crying, like, I don't even know why I'm out here, this is all arbitrary. And after the race, we kind of talked, and I basically promised her, like, I need to take a few years off of like the crazy stuff. Yeah. Like it's fine to go run for a few hours or a day even, like, but not like a full day. Like, so for me, I started doing I'll be 41 this year. I started doing the middle-aged man birthday ultra run every year.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So last year I ran 40 miles through the night for my 40th birthday.
Yeah. I remember that.
What's that?
I remember that. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I think we talked on Instagram.
Yeah.
And just absolutely abused caffeine and Zen pouches and, talk to God out there. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm definitely going to do that again in November. And then low key, I had kind of insinuated to the guys that I had some ideas if we ever wanted to do a sequel to this film.
Talk about this.
So you're going to put it, see the thing.
Throw it out there.
Well, he asked if we had any other plans,
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So, I mean, in my head, and this is where all this crazy stuff starts, is like...
He just said he was promised his wife that he was taking a break. I'm just going to put that. I'm just going to put that in there right now.
I got
yeah. But so now it's been festering,
Yeah.
But my family, my wife appreciates like a good. If it's work, then it's a whole different set of allowances. You know what I mean?
Right.
So my idea was, if we down the road, whenever, what if we doubled up everything? What if because our EP is 5 songs. The race was 100 miles.
Okay.
And so I'm
going.
like,
yeah,
if we did a sequel, what if we all did a 200, and then made a full length LP, 10 song LP for the film. Yes. And maybe we get some sponsorships going, whatever. And I could pitch it to my wife as it's like a business opportunity.
Yeah.
Like I'm out working.
Dude, get Floris.
so that week I'm at work.
Yeah, get Floris on this. Plant the seed in his head. Start with the.
Oh, it's already being. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Kyle pitched this to us within the month, and Caleb and I were both like, yeah. But the terrible thing is, I'm probably warming up to
it's
it.
It's gonna stick in your head, dude. You're not gonna be able to get it out.
it's been a
I know.
it's been a brain worm, and I'm just like, oof,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
psycho.
I could probably be shamed into it. That's where I'm at. So
yeah,
Yeah,
Caleb,
dude.
you have no excuses, dude. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's true.
yeah,
Kids, man. Like, yeah.
yeah,
Asthma, kids, I mean, but you got no kids,
yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
200 would go down.
That's
That it might work my asthma pretty well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an up-tempo hike at that point, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah.
So,
and for those listening who might not know who you either tour with or play with or your own music, what can you tell me, let them know where they can either find you or see you or hear you and all that?
yeah, I'll get out of the way first because it's short. Right now I'm full-time with Katy Perry. She just put out a new record, and we are going on tour in 2025.
Nice.
So, I mean, you can always hit me up on Instagram. I'm not sure how many comps and stuff we have, but I like meeting runners and people in that community.
Yeah.
If you're coming to a show, hit me up, and I would absolutely love to come say hey after the show.
Awesome. That's super cool. And are you doing Kelly Clarkson's show too, or is that not right?
I come fill in from time to time.
Okay.
They moved to New York, and the timing just wasn't right for me and my
Okay.
family. So they're all still great friends. We text a lot, Kelly and the whole crew. But yeah, once or twice a year, I'll come up there to help them fill in.
Okay, cool. I saw you on the VMAs, or I
Yeah.
saw that video. Was it VMAs that you were on, or was it with Katy Perry?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was going to ask what gigantic like silver monolithic structure was I standing on, and what was I wearing?
Yeah. You were definitely looking very spacey.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And then what about you two?
For me, mostly I'm working out. This is actually my home studio that we're in right here.
Nice.
Through that door is a big room with drums. And so I'm working on records out of here. I just produced a record for the guy co-produced a record for the guy that I do still tour with these days, Brian Kelly. He's formerly of the duo Florida Georgia Line. They're both doing solo ventures right now. And so I'm band lead for him on the road. And then I just co-produced a record that's coming out on October 25th. On the same day, my wife, Mandy Sagal, is also one of the artists that I produce.
Oh, cool.
And so we've got a single for
yeah.
out. So that's where my head's at most of the time is producing records and getting stuff out of here.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, these days. So, like I said, I did the voice stuff this last summer. Those episodes are airing, forthcoming here over the next month and a half or two.
Okay.
And so, playing a bunch of my own shows over the next little bit, which will be fun. Hopefully, I'll get to employ these two fantastic gentlemen to provide some rhythm sectiony stuff.
Yeah.
When I kind of and then I play electric guitar for a gal named Colby Calais when she does full band stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
She's awesome and a great gal, freaking killer singer. So
Oh yeah.
she's not on the road a ton, but play shows with her. So again, I would say the same thing Kyle says. Like if you see a show where she's playing and you're a runner and want to grab some miles or whatever, reach out to me on Instagram or whatever, and I'd love to hang a bit. And then and then kind of the same as Caleb, just like playing on records here in Nashville and making that work as much as I can.
That's awesome.
So, and then our record,
Oh yeah.
the
Of course.
DFL. that
DFL
matters.
record, it drops tonight at 9 p.m.,
Nice.
which is October 8th, the day that we're recording this. By the time you are listening to it, it will be out.
Yeah.
And it's out on all platforms. The record is titled Rhythm in the Darkness, and the band name is DFL.
Dude, it sounds like like you're a hardcore, like either a hardcore band.
I know.
Like
Yeah. That's kind of what we leaned into.
yeah, or like a 90s punk or an 80s punk band. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then the music's all like beautiful, like Beatlesy country,
Right.
Yeah.
A little different.
I'm surprised there isn't a punk band called DFL at this point, or hardcore.
Yes, as far as we know, we're not infringing on any copyrights.
I don't think when I looked it up, we're not getting in trouble with anybody yet. So maybe somebody's going to reach out to us and give us a cease and desist. But
that'd be a sign that the record's doing well.
Yeah.
If somebody gives
That's
us a
true.
cease.
That's true.
Yeah, if we get sued, we definitely made it.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a link to that in the description for sure.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
please.
Yeah, appreciate it, Robbie. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Since this is so I'm a big fan of the show and you guys, and
Yeah.
I watch too much believe in the run content, like every shoe that comes out. And we're all nerds, so I wanted to know what's everybody wearing. Like first pick shoe right now, it could be road or trail. Like first instinct.
I mean, so
no.
Yeah. No, personally, I mean, Asics Superblast 2 is probably my favorite road shoe just in general.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I love that shoe. Just it's so good for pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Race day could go. I mean, I still love the Vaporfly 3. I did race in the Adios Pro 4 in Berlin, got a PR in it, and I did love that shoe, but it was like, I think the sizing was a little bit too small for me, so I banged up my toes. So I can't say, it's hard to say without getting a half size up. Everything else was awesome about it. I loved it.
Yeah.
Which one was that, Robbie? Sorry?
The Adios Pro 4
was Adidas.
Okay, got it.
And then, but as far as other road shoes, like I was saying, like I do love the Super Blast for sure.
Yeah.
And trail, I haven't done as much trail recently, unfortunately. But I still love the Norda 001. That's just like my favorite, one of my favorite shoes of all time. Just for anything, even you can even run road in it. Walking, I think it's just a beautiful shoe in general, and it lasts for.
Yeah, those shoes are like bulletproof too, right?
It'll last forever. Yeah.
Ever. Right.
So it's like I think it's like $285, but if you figure you're getting 1,000 miles out of it, I mean, you're getting a lot of life.
Totally.
And then I think I'm trying to think. I mean, the Hoka Tecton X3 has been pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. Like
I want to try that one.
Our reviewers love it. The fit, depending on your foot, might be a little weird because it is a booty fit. But if it locks down nicely and stuff, like it's such a great shoe. I mean, obviously Jim Walmsley.
Hoka's kind of on a little upswing this year.
Hoka will definitely get brand of the year because they've just like completely reversed their fortunes. Where they were just kind of they were getting a little stale, I feel like, for a bit there.
Yeah.
And then they just like turned.
I feel like Ultra is there right now, personally. I know they're trying some things, but
I felt like since Ultra had gotten bought out, it's like things went a little weird. I think a lot of their audience went over to Topo Athletic, who makes
love Topo
great shoes. Yeah, as you know.
I've never run in a pair of Topos.
Dude, there's always. I feel like they never miss, especially on the trail side.
Oh yeah, okay.
The fit is like. That's kind of what they're known for. I mean, it's the guy from Rockport shoes, Brad, from the 80s and 90s. So, like, he's got the fitment is like, New Balance times, New Balance is known for a really nice fit. That's kind of one of their strong suits. Topo is like out of the park. Now, when it comes to like midsole compounds and stuff, they're slower on new technology, I feel like.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I'd say the grip, they use Vibram Mega Grip for pretty much everything. So it's always like you're getting great traction, and they're comfortable enough. I mean, it's not gonna. I think they just basic EVA for most of their stuff, but that's fine on trail. And although they do have some good road options with P-backs, but I would say those are like some of my favorites right now. I mean. Some of the Adidas stuff is good for trail, like the new Terex stuff, but it's a little bit aggressive. You really have to like be like dialed in for especially the race day shoe. But North Face is making some sick shoes too, like on the trail side,
Dude, I feel like North Face has always been like either making the dopest shoe that you've ever run in on a trail, or then it's just like they don't even fit you anymore.
Well,
like you'd try. Especially normal size, and it's like, what happened?
Especially in the mid, they definitely turned around in the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay,
they were really pretty poor quality before that, but now the Alta Mesa 500 is like pretty much. I think most of our reviewers like it's the best probably trail shoe.
Oh wow,
sick
out there.
Okay,
cool. So I think it's like almost replaces Speed Goat in that like Hallowed like
a Speed Goat killer. Very interesting.
Like
okay,
ultra like. Comfort mixed with performance type shoe. I feel like most of our reviewers have kind of shifted to the Alta Mesa. So you might want to check that out. I would.
That's high praise. Yeah.
When I've liked North Face shoes, I've loved them.
Yeah.
But like, there's like never been an in between for me. I worked at a little specialty run shop here in Nashville for a while called Nashville Running Company,
right?
And they have dabbled back and forth with North Face, and like. we'd try some on and be like, oh, these are freaking killer. And that would be the shoe that I would wear that year.
Yeah.
And then next come in and it like I said, the size wouldn't even work. And it was like, what freaking happened here?
Yeah, I think their quality control was pretty bad for a while. At least from what I've been told by our trail team and other people. But yeah.
But this last round.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, they definitely turned around.
Okay.
And so I would say check them out. And another one that comes to mind, which like I've seen, like I've worn and I actually like the shoe a lot. It's a new brand called Mount the Coast. I feel like they've done some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like
they're the ultra focused, road ultra focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, but I really did like the R1, the one shoe they came out with.
R1, yeah.
Like I did a couple of long, like 18-mile long runs in that shoe, and I thought it was great. But yeah,
sick.
I don't know. It's such a weird time because there's so many good shoes. Like everyone's kind of caught up. You know, before it was like, oh, if you had the supercritical foam or like Piba or whatever, and 6 years ago it was like you could put a large gap between yourself and the other brands. But now it's like everyone kind of has that version of a shoe. And it's hard to really, it's almost hard to give a bad review because there's so many, like the technology has evolved so much that almost everyone's making great shoes, you know? But I mean, it's a cool time for running for sure. As you know, the trail scene has exploded. And road as well, like everyone's running now. It's just like it's out of control almost. It's like there's almost too many runners.
Do you think that's like
right.
Hold over from like COVID explosion?
Yeah.
I think if people just
100%. I mean, it's like a double wave. It was like almost a 2-tiered tidal wave. So you had I think the super shoes started things a lot, helped a lot. And then especially with comfort and performance. And then COVID when nobody had anything to do. So everyone's like, oh, I guess I'll just go run because I need to get outside and be healthy.
Yeah.
And then so you can see that wave of runners now doing like, they're finally getting to that marathon distance, which is why London Marathon had 800,000 applicants, which is double.
What?
Yeah. It was like double last year.
Night.
Yeah. So like,
Gosh.
it's insane. And why you see the Boston Marathon numbers dropping like crazy low is because everybody's now getting to that point where they're able to run fast and run long. And then now, so then that spilled over into like another COVID thing was that everybody was, depressed and lonely and had nobody and isolated and didn't have anyone to talk to or hang out with. And then running groups during that time started they've been kind of, growing in the last 10 years or so, but that seed was there. And then it was like, oh, here's a place where I can go. And it's like both healthy, fun, social, free. And, and now that running and
if you're single, you can pick up a date,
there's literally,
you just never know.
Have you heard of that New York City running group? That's just like, you wear black if you're single or white if you're taken.
No way.
That's a very Japanese aesthetic. They have some clubs where you can have like a green light, red light kind of thing, which I love. Take the guesswork out of it.
And they'll have 1,000 people show up to every run, like on a Tuesday night.
Jeez, Louise.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Can't believe I didn't think of that.
Yeah. So it's totally, it's wild. And then of course, so now that new wave of runners, because a lot of those runs are just like 3-mile runs, real chill.
Right, yeah.
So
fun runs.
Eventually they're going to be like, oh, maybe I'll do a 10K and a half marathon. So then I think in 2 more years from now, it's going to be even crazier. So,
jeez, Louise.
So I don't see any end to the marathons, ultras. I feel like it's just going to keep going for another 5 to 10 years.
I think that bodes well for us. The documentary we started making in 2018 and it was like its own ultra marathon in itself, getting this thing finished and put out.
Yeah.
We did it all ourselves for the most part. Like it was a very indie, no budget kind of product. So like, we are hoping and we think that this thing will sit on YouTube and just slowly ramp up views. And, I have a lot of like darling ultra docs that I found on YouTube over the years that
for sure
you ask around at races, and low key, a lot of people have seen them. Run for the Soul. I think the Western States one from the '90s.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of old school docs on there that are becoming like cult favorites. You know, so we hope that in 10 years, you know, this is a film that is endearing to people. You know.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks guys for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a good hang. I wish we
thanks.
Yeah, good to wake up with you guys. It's 8:30 in the morning.
Right. I wish we could do it in person. Maybe someday we'll be able to.
Yeah.
We tried. I know, trying to get everybody's schedules.
Crazy. Yeah, I understand.
We did try.
We'll make it happen at some point.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I'll talk to you guys again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Robbie.
Hey, Robbie.